My name is David Chung, and Rob just mentioned that in Darby. First of all, I want to thank you very much for being here. Let me just set up. We're going to be spending the next 2 days together, and this is, as Rob said, this is going to be a process, and you're going to have a lot of things thrown at you, multiple speakers. It's a journey that we're embarking on. And first of all, I want to mention you have a resource guide in your packet, so if you can get that out for a minute. It's got the agenda on the second page, and you can look at that. We're going to have lunch. Trish is going to tell you about that in a little bit. But I want to mention we've got some sponsors that we want to thank. The Melbourne Chamber of Commerce. Tom Fulmer is going to be here speaking later, and we've got Shelter Mortgage. So I want to thank you very much for that. Tracy Stoddard from Everything Bavard. So let me bring up the presentation we're going to start with. Okay, anybody recognize this phrase, Veni, Vidi, Visa? Where it comes from? Okay.
I don't remember, but Julius Caesar, yes, but been something, been there.
Been there, done that?
Yeah, something like that.
Close. Okay, the original is Veni, Vidi, Vici. And it was, I came, I saw, I conquered. Okay? And we're going to change that around to I came, I saw, I spent. Because everybody has a Visa card, right? And one of the things about being in business is you are exchanging your goods or services or knowledge for cash many times. And you could be bartering. There's all kinds of ways to do that. But Bill Gates once said something very profound. And I think people tend to overcomplicate things. Now everybody knows who Bill Gates is, right? I mean, nobody needs an introduction to Bill Gates. And we're going to be talking about branding quite a bit. But he said something very profound. By the way, when he was 12 years old, he was reading Fortune magazine when all his colleagues were reading Mad magazine. But what Gates says is business is simple. You've got revenue. You take away expenses, and you have profit. And we tend, I think, to overcomplicate this. But now, certainly, it's easier to make profit when you're a monopoly, like Microsoft. But it didn't always start that way. But what we need to be thinking about, and what we're doing here at Skyrocket, is how to grow your revenues. We're not really going to focus on cost cutting and quality and all that. We want to be thinking about how do you grow your revenue. There's a million things to do. There's all this technology, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Plaxo. There's so many of these social media things. There's all this direct mail, direct response, phones. We don't want you to get overwhelmed by that because a lot of people do get overwhelmed by it. At heart, you're using that to instill some kind of reciprocity with somebody. You give somebody something, they give something back. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But I want you to keep that in mind because sometimes this business, people can just throw things at you left and right. It gets overcomplicated. Now, no matter where you are, we're all on a journey. And what I want you to ask yourselves over these 2 days is, what kind of impact do you want to have? What are the gifts you offer? What's your purpose? What's your message? What do you want your legacy to be? And we're going to talk about how to bring that into your business, bring it into your being, so so that the audience you're looking for is going to respond. So I think one of the things about being in this room is we are not satisfied with where we are. We want to be somewhere else. And we've got to look at that goal, but sometimes you can't just go from where you are to jump up there real quickly. You know, you've got to go through steps, but we don't want to go 2, 3, 4% a year. We want to jump, make real jumps. And in physics, they call that quantum leaps. I mean, there's a whole quantum leap technology, not technology, but I mean, in terms of real physics, how particles work. Has everybody heard the term USP? If you have, just raise your hand. Okay. If you have not heard that, and there's a couple variations of that, you really have to have that. And we're going to be working on what's your USP. That means unique selling proposition. Other people call it unique buying proposition. Why should somebody buy from you? Other people call it unique value proposition. And we're going to talk a lot about price and value over the next 2 days, because they're not the same thing. How many of you know who Jay Abraham is? Okay, just about half the room. We're going to talk quite a bit about him. I could spend a lot of time talking about Jay Abraham. He's one of the foremost business consultants in the world. He charges $40,000 a day for his time. And he usually doesn't do that. He tries to work on the back end. I help you out, and I take a third of the profits, the incremental profits. Now, I don't know if $40,000 a day sounds like chump change to you, but I would guess that most of us in the room don't make 40 grand a day. Okay, so if you would like to make 40 grand a day, you need to pay attention to Jay Abraham. And we have a resource kit that we talked about on the web. It's got a value. I'm going to say it's got a value of over $10,000. And one of the things that's in it, and we're going to tell you about it later, is a book that Jay Abraham said has made him more than $3 million by applying the principles in that book, and I'll tell you all about it. But here's a little bit about me. You don't really need to, my bio's already in there. But I did want to, and I've got a few photos of me with quote-unquote famous people. Jack Canfield, George Ross, Devin Grant. Now, and I've got a few books, and I can get into this later. I wrote a book, actually this book over here, Darby kindly mentioned on the world's foremost authority on Jim Morrison and the Doors. I've got a book coming out, it says spring 2013, hopefully it'll get done. I've got another one, it's called The Regret Cure, How to Eliminate Toxic Emotions and Never Regret Again. And then I've got this other one, God Is Not Play Dice, and it's about Einstein quantum theory and what he was saying. By the way, I'm going to just mention right now, in my book about Jim Morrison, I'm going to elevate him. I'm not really that interested in him as a person, although I am, but I'm interested more in what he was saying in his music and Jim Morrison as a thinker. Okay, and I'm going to elevate Jim Morrison as a thinker to the same level of Einstein. Okay, now enough about me. I did want to mention there's an article that I was reading. I'm working with a guy who's writing a book. Okay, and he said, "Oh my God, I've done so much, but I don't want to tell anybody about my book." And I'm like, really, I'm a shrinking violet. I'd rather go stand on the corner of the room at a party than tell everybody about my book. Now, this guy lives about 50 miles from here. He's been trading for a living for 30, 40 years, and he makes a lot of money trading. Sitting in front of him trading, and he's writing a book. And I said, if you want to write a book and sell a lot of copies, you actually have to come out of your shell. You have to tell people about it. And he said, well, I don't really want to do that. Well, how do you expect people to value you if you don't go out and value yourself? And so we're trying to convince him to do that. And I read this article in the Wall Street Journal. It was about bragging. It said something about the art of bragging. Okay. Now, I am not somebody who goes around, oh my God, I did all this. However, Donald Trump, and you saw George Ross's picture, Donald Trump said in a program, I make bragging one of the foundations of my philosophy for success. Okay, now, you know who Rush Limbaugh is, right? Howard Stern. I make being obnoxious one of the foundations of my success. So, if you are going to be, hi, I'm a little afraid of, telling you who I am and why you should do business with me, that don't work, okay? So in your USP, you need to be thinking about, well, who am I? Why do I have value? Whether it's I'm giving away something for free or I'm charging a lot of money. And I'll give you one example of the price value thing. Somebody named Fabian Fredrickson, and if you're in the business of looking for clients, write this down, clientattraction.com. Okay. Fabienne is a very successful person helping others find clients. And she had a book on networking, an ebook. Now, a lot of people think an ebook is like not worth a whole lot because it's electrons. There's all this stuff you can get on Kindle for 99 cents up to, several $100s. And one of the companies I worked for was selling a report for $3,500 on Amazon. And people go, oh my God, this is an electronic thing. Why should it be worth? Bill Gates was literally saying software should not be free, when all these other people were saying software should be free. But with the thing about Fabienne, free versus pay, she had this ebook on network, how to go network, and it was $87. Okay. Now, how many people think that's a little bit more, a little bit too much to pay for a book on networking? How many of you think that's too much? Just raise your hand. Okay, so about half the room, this half of the room raises their hand, and very few people over. Anyway, I guess my view is I don't know what's in the book, and it could be $87. It's not worth a whole lot, but it's it could be worth $1,000. Now one day I'm sitting around and I get an email from Fabienne. She goes, "Hey, you can have this book for free, this weekend only, because you're on my list. So go to this thing and download it, and it's my gift for being on my list." Right? And then 2 days later, it's $87 again. So I'm thinking, gee whiz, was that thing really worth $0, or was it worth 87, or was it worth 1,000? Because there's all these things we can do with price. Zero, and even on, what affiliate marketing is on the internet? How many of you know what affiliate marketing is? Raise your hand. Okay, great. Some merchants will give affiliates more than 100% of the first sale. Now, somebody will say, oh my God, that's crazy. The sale is $10 and I'm giving the guy $15. I'm losing $5. Now, why would somebody do that? You're going to have revenue later on. Great. That's called the back end in some lingo, right? You can monetize that person, not necessarily forever, but you can, so that there's a concept called lifetime value of a customer, which is not rocket science. And you, in the Space Coast, know more about that than I do. But what's the price value relationship? So keep that in mind, okay, as we go through this. Now, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the internet here, because the internet, if you're not on the internet, you need to be on the internet. And you need to be on it in a big way, even if you're local. Okay, even if you're local, and I mean, I don't know if anybody here is a dry cleaner or a caterer, or you're not going to go cater a party in Los Angeles unless you become like Jada or something like that, and then you're going to be known all over the world. But I know a lady who's just starting a clinic up in Saratoga, New York, which has anybody ever heard of it? I mean, it's not like it's not like a destination, right? But yeah, right. But they want to make this eye clinic a destination for people all over the world to fly into. And like Texas has this medical center. This is where all the rich and famous come to get their treatment for whatever. So even if you're local, you can attract people from around the world through the internet. Okay. And we're going to talk about your businesses later. And I ask you to think about your USP, because either I'm going to call on you to talk about your USP, or you're going to volunteer. Because this is going to be interactive and we're going to have workshops. Okay? So don't think you're going to just sit there and absorb and do nothing. Okay? So anyway, this Kindle, okay, these days, this is a massive lead generator for each and every one of you. If you're not taking advantage of it, you need to be. And there's a whole secret to that, by the way. Kindle, everybody thought, oh my God, you take a book and you e-book it. This is my book. You e-book it, and that's the end of it. No. People started actually thinking, how can I reach millions of people? Because let's face it, this website that we had up earlier, the Skyrocket website, we don't have millions of visitors, right? And I will be willing to bet that, how many of you have a website that is sort of okay? Raise your hand. Okay, so about half of you have, okay. But I would be willing to bet that Amazon Kindle gets more traffic than you do. Okay? Anybody beating Amazon these days? I mean, anybody like in bed with Google, Because if you can get found on Kindle for lead generation, you can direct people back to your website, which is what these smart people are doing. By the way, you've all heard of gaming the system, and some of you have actually may have tried that at one point in your life. There's good ways of gaming the system, and there's bad ways of gaming the system. Now, one of the bad ways was to try to outsmart Google. And you know how backlinks coming to your site is a way to get traffic. Everybody know what a backlink is? Okay, if you don't know what a backlink is, it's basically how many people are linking to your site to give your site more credibility. And you could go to these people and say, I will buy 10,000 backlinks from you. I'll give you $10 and you give me 10,000 backlinks within 24 hours. Because there's all these automated ways of doing it. And Google, it takes them, 1, 2, 3, 4 years to catch up with the quote-unquote scam artists. But eventually they did. And all these websites that were gaming the system were shut down. And a friend of mine was helping all these people game the system. Half of them went bankrupt within like 3 months. He shut his business down, and he went to go take a job. Now, I don't know. I don't want to denigrate anybody that has a job. So people have jobs. Some people are not fit to be. Well, fit's not the right word. Some people don't want to be their own boss. But I think a lot of people aspire to be their own boss. Unfortunately, a lot of people who aspire to be their own boss go into it thinking, oh, God, I'm going to do all these great things. But they don't have all the broad range of skills necessary. And we'll talk about that a little later. But one other thing about gaming the system, I was saying people are going to sort of try to figure out the little nooks and crannies. How can I do this? How can I do that? And a long time ago, United Airlines had a strike. And in order to woo people back, they gave these coupons away for $50. And I don't think they said you can't use more than one of them at a time or whatever. But I remember people were flying from Oakland to San Francisco back and forth all day long to get a $50 coupon, because I think the fare was $9, something like that. So they'd sit there and, oh my God, every time I do this, it's like 8 minutes. There's more time on the runways. Because you know the Bay Area out there, right? I mean, it's literally, it's like a drive. But that's called gaming the system. Now, if you want to game the system, you can't, with Google and all this stuff, you can't do it against their rules, but you can be smart, okay? So we're going to talk about that. Now, I just want to show you this slide from Morgan Stanley on the huge opportunity with the internet. And basically, it's showing the computing power and almost the portability. Now, I don't think there's anybody in this room who's old enough to remember what a mainframe is, because you're all so young. But in the dinosaur age, there was the mainframe. Okay, and by the way, remember Digital Equipment Corporation? They call it DEC. Ken Olson, I met him once. He went to MIT, and I met him at a function. And he was quoted as saying, I don't know why anybody would ever want a PC in their home. Okay, this is when IBM was coming out with the PC, and Wang, I used to work for Wang. Ken Olsen goes, I don't know why anybody. So anyway, Digital got bought by Compaq, and they got bought by HP. And so what's happening here is from the mainframe to the mini to the PC to the desktop to the mobile. So we're in the mobile area. Now there's more cell phones in a lot of countries than there are land phones, right? Because landlines are called restrictive. You have to actually be there, you know. So this thing, and this thing are literally ways you can make money, okay? A local an app about your business, and you know, people are now saying, oh, order my pizza, which is, you know, a phone call away, but order on the web. It'll pop up on their screen, they'll make it, it'll be ready for you. You have to be thinking about convenience, okay? You have to be thinking about what they want. And a lot of business people, and I'm from the technology area, and the technology people sort of have a heritage of the AT&T monopoly heritage, which was, you know, when you're a monopoly, right, you can do anything, right? And I used to do a lot of work with Bell Atlantic when they were actually still a monopoly. And their view was, we'll bring out the damn phone when we're ready. Remember the cable guy? We'll show up anywhere between 9 and 5 at your house, somewhere Monday through Wednesday. So can you stay home all those 3 days and, you know, don't go out? Because we're on our schedule. And technology people often think the same way now. We have a great product, and this has got so many features, there's so much functionality, the audience will love it. And I know so many people who've gone bankrupt. A good friend of mine, he goes, I've got the most incredible database in the world, and everybody's going to love it. He went bankrupt. Now, his lesson after that was, I couldn't make the market want what it didn't want. Okay? Now, you really have to internalize that, because we often say, oh my God, I've got so much of this, I've got so much of that. Can't they see it? Can't they see it? What's wrong with those people? So you have to get into their shoes and see it from their point of view. And there's a million excuses for everything. Okay? So you can cut through that through sort of navigating. Okay, now, you know the magazine Wired, right? Chris Anderson has a little, he wrote a book on the long tail. Now, does everybody know what the long tail is? Okay, then I'll spend a couple minutes on this. He literally wrote a whole book on the long tail, and he also wrote a book called Free, which is a very interesting book, and you can download the whole audio for free, or you used to be able to do that. But he had 50 ways to talk about free versus paid, because you know you can't be free forever. Okay, I know a company, you know Constant Contact, right? Yeah. Their headquarters is 10 miles from where I live, and I knew those people when they were called Roving Software. But they took losses for 10 years as part of their business model. So they were like, it wasn't free, but they were still losing money. But so free and paid is another thing we're going to talk about a lot. Free and paid. But anyway, Chris Anderson is saying, you know, a typical bookstore would carry 50,000 titles, okay? And with the internet and Amazon, you could carry 1.5 million titles. So since there was very little cost to carrying all those titles in a warehouse, you know, they could stock 2 or 3 copies of a book and sell only that many a year, whereas you go to Barnes & Noble, and they can't stock books that only sell 2 or 3 copies a year. You know, they have to stock the bestsellers. And we're going to talk a little bit about authoring, because all of you should be an author of one form or another, even if you can't write. There's a real interesting guy named Dan Poynter. Write his name down. P-O-Y-N-T-E-R. Dan Poynter. And he is the godfather of self-publishing. And he has two great lines. I mean, he's a funny guy, but one of them is, bookstores don't sell books, they inventory books. And the other is, everybody's got a book inside them. For most people, that's exactly where it should stay. Now, with these opportunities to get your message out there to billions of people, you don't have to literally have a bestseller on your hands. You can mine the long tail over here, which is, there's some people who are really going to be looking for, Rachmaninoff and his concerto or whatever, but it's not going to be a bestseller like James Patterson, okay? Patricia Cornwell. We're not talking about the big mass markets. So with the digital age, you can carry, like Rhapsody, that music, they have a lot of songs that don't get a lot of sales. But if you can find your niche market, which is what the internet allows you to do, you can be mining keywords and looking for target markets that are way, way out here. Some of you, how many of you are in the service industry where you actually have real clients? You're not selling a product. Okay. Okay, some of you. You may only need 100 or 200 or 500 people in your tribe, so to speak. Seth Godin, a marketing guy, talks about tribes. You may only need a few hundred people to build a significant business. But the bestseller people, they need to be selling hundreds of thousands of copies. They need hundreds of thousands of customers. You really don't. So you can be mining the long tail. Now, we're going to talk about the Veni, Vidi, Visa. The Veni is the visibility. Now, we're going to talk about website, but it could be your store, okay? Or your office, or your place of practice. Okay? You need visibility out there in the market. You may be the greatest at what you do, but if you don't have visibility, you don't have anything. You have friends and family. So you need to be looking at your visitor experience and your message and who your target market is. Okay? So once you have this, and there's a lot of ways to get that, and we've got guest speakers who are going to be talking about that. This is your window to the world. Okay, your website or your office. But let me give you an example of somebody who literally had a brick and mortar business who then shut it down because he found that the internet was able to really get him a much bigger audience. And this is somebody who was up in Vermont somewhere who carried posters and stuff like that, antiques and whatever. And this person had to rely on traffic from the local area, just people walking by or people who saw the ad or whatever it was. And he had a poster, a railroad poster. He was, like for sale. It was like $50, and so he put it on eBay. And some people started bidding the price up, like a lot higher than $50, and it got to be something like $700 or $800. Okay, and this guy said, well, what the hell's going on here? Why is this El Cheapo poster going into this huge price increase? So somebody bought it for some astronomical amount. And it turns out that one poster was part of a collection that this person who bought it for the high amount needed to complete the collection, his own collection. But this person is never going to find that hot buyer, walking by their store. So you have to do the same thing as this. You have a global audience, potentially. So there's a lot of ways to make your website work. Now, we're going to go to Visa, step 3. And there's a reason I'm skipping step 2. It's not because I can't count from 1, 2 to 3. But if you want to see Visa cards being entered into your website, you have to make sure they know about you, which is number 1, and then you've got a good offer. You've got something of value. And they have to see that. And we talked a little bit about the $0 purchase. You know, if you go to Amazon and go download a book that costs $0 and 0 cents, you have to fill out a shopping cart and say, buy me. And they get all your information. You don't just download it without telling them who you are. Because they want to get statistics on what's selling these days that's called free. And by the way, free these days needs to be sold. Okay? Write that down. There's not a lot of stuff I'm going to ask you to write that down. I was telling earlier some people. I usually don't tell people what to do. I mean, my kids, I'll tell them what to do every so often. But I'm not going to say, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. But I think you should write down, free needs to be sold. Because there are so many things to get for free. I mean, all these websites give something for free. I mean, a lot of websites give something for free. And you can't possibly digest it all. But they have to see a value, even if it's free. Okay. Has anybody ever gotten something for free off the internet they've never read or used? Oh yeah, oh yeah, okay. Has anybody ever bought anything they've never used? Oh, have you ever bought a book you've never read? Not completed it. So you've almost completed every book I've bought books I've never even opened. Okay? So something told me, oh, I gotta go buy that book, and then I get it at home and which reminds me, this convenience is.
I just need to collect.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to talk. I need to call in the lunch order, so inside your folder, we have land and sea as a lunch special, so it's $10.50 a person, and I'm going to call it all in for you right now. Also, there's a ticket inside your folder. I think we told you all about it. We're having the reception this evening, also at between 7:30 and 9:30. He is showcasing all of his fabulous appetizers, and your first drink is free. So you'll get beer, wine, or soda for attending the seminar today. And so if you have your menus, if you want to send them to the end, and I'll pick them up from everybody, if you want to order. And it is right up the street too, so if anybody doesn't know where it's at or whatever, we can all follow each other. No, it's going to be served. It's going to be served buffet style, so you know how much to order for a good group. And if you like sushi, I can also do a sushi order for you as well to have it ready for you when you go to sushi. I don't have a sushi menu because it was so hard. Yeah, just fill it out on your order and with your name, and I'll have them order it for you.
Everyone, this is Trish. Everyone, this is Trish Lee, and she's our event planner, so give her a big round of applause. She's been my saving grace. For the last 8 days, I've had no voice, so we are welcoming my voice back, little at a time. So Trish is keeping us all organized and on task and making sure that we get fed and our breaks and all that good stuff. So we definitely want to invite you all to join us this evening for a mix and mingle at Boys Land and Sea. That's set up just for us, so we can have time to get to know each other and network. And the book that David was referring to is totally worth $87 if you know how to apply it. And I'll teach you later how to apply those, okay? Those techniques and those tips and those strategies of going into any event that you go into and capturing the most out of every conversation. But I'm going to, sorry for the interruption. I'm going to hand it back over to David. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Darby. In the $10,000 bonus online resource vault. You're going to get this sheet in a little bit. We do not put Fabienne's PDF on here because that would be depriving her of revenue. But everything else is either available for free on the web, or we've got permission to give it to you. But getting back to this free and whatever, the internet has made your lives so much easier and a lot more complicated. So there's a double-edged sword there. But resources are out there, okay? And talking about gaming the system, one of the things you're going to get, and we'll go into this, is a book that I saw. A friend of mine actually has a website, and he's selling all these timeless classics of marketing things. And one of them was a book that I can't remember which it was, but it was $87 or $97, something like that. It was a hefty price. And I said, well, I wonder if I can get that for free, quote unquote, because I love the word free. There's something about, I saw 5 words that are really big in marketing, and one of them is free, and one of them is new, okay? But I said, I wonder if I get this for free, because I sort of, was interested, and I found it because it was not that hard to find. So you have to learn how to be experts on that thing too, searching. Okay, but now we get back to step number 2, and that's credibility. I came to your website and I bought. What's the step, the missing link? And that's the credibility. Because you know what a bounce rate is, right, on your website? Okay. Who would like to talk about their business for a minute? What do they do? And okay, go ahead. And your name and why don't you? No, hold on. Why don't you come to the mic? Because we want to make this interactive, and we want to help people. This is not exactly a hot seat, but we can do those later. When I will grill you, and I've seen people reduce other people to tears, practically. I'm not that style.
Tears, I got waterproof on, so I'm okay. All right. My name is Jean Roberts. I've been on the internet and training on internet marketing and that for at least 5 years. Implementing it is a whole other thing. I can build a WordPress site in an afternoon, no problem. Doing the keyword research, long tail, all that stuff, that's the part that if you're not doing that, nobody knows that you exist. I have been going through years of personal development after a big shift in my life. I'm on chapter 2 and everything's amazing. So now, for the last 4 years, I was trying to decide what am I going to do, because I know it's going to be on the internet. And after going to numerous class reunions, everyone said to me, are you still doing your art? And well, I hadn't been. So now, after listening to all these motivational speakers and all this for all these years saying, do what you love, do what your God-given gift, bless other people, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm getting back into my art. So I do hand-painted furniture, murals, and I'm also embarking on my business doing internet art instruction. So I am going to be teaching people, I am going to be painting on site, on location, traveling, and all that. So now it's time to put all that stuff that's been crammed into this tiny head for the last 4 or 5 years and actually start implementing it. So that's what I'm doing now. That's where I'm at.
Great. Thank you, Jean. Anybody have any suggestions? Because I've got a couple for Jean, but anybody have any suggestions before I tell her mine? Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I think I would paint a little bit more of a picture and fill in some of the pieces of the puzzle. So.
Okay, as far as I was kind of doing, this introduction was not my, this was kind of my personal introduction to everybody in the room, just kind of letting you know where I'm at. But when I introduce myself, I am a decorative artist and instructor. So I can either paint a piece of furniture, I do a lot of upcycling. My husband is a carpenter and we repurpose furniture, and then I'll hand paint it, and then if I can either teach you how to do it or I can do it for you. So that's pretty much where I'm at. But I've been going through the branding and all that stuff too, and it's not like automatic yet.
Okay, we're going to, thank you very much for that.
Sure.
We're going to Later, we're going to have hot seats where if you want to have your website looked at together, we can bring up your website and go through it. I want to mention a couple people to you, darrellcrow.com. So write that down, DARRELLCROW.com, because he sells art instruction. And there's a guy, was it Ted Ross or somebody Ross who was on PBS a long time ago? Bob Ross, right. Darrell's a friend of mine. He has all these courses, videos, whatever, on how to paint. And it's not paint by numbers, but it's sort of like that. And his site is very much worth your while to go look at. And we can talk about that later. But there's a lot of artists who are trying to do what you're doing. So everybody should model success, obviously. Don't model failure, right? And there are successful people doing that you can learn from. So anyway, about the credibility, what's your story? Why should someone listen to you? How do you persuade people to join your tribe? Now, we're going to have a little exercise, and it's called Selling with Stories, okay? So let's hand that out. And it's about how you can stand up in the crowd. So we're going to go through this. And by the way, story, we're going to talk about story a lot over the next 2 days, and I don't want to bore you to death with it. It might sound a little light and superfluous, but I can pretty much guarantee you that it's not. And it's really worth getting into this. Anybody know who Michael Eisner is?
Yes.
Okay. For those of you who don't know who he was the head of Disney. And he helped build Disney from a $1.9 billion business to around $60 billion. Okay? And I met him recently, and we didn't really talk a whole lot, but he gave a great speech about what he did. And it all revolves around story. Okay? In Hollywood, you can talk to all these actors, all these directors, all these people left and right. What makes something successful in Hollywood, which is all about motion pictures, plus the theme parks and all that. It is the story. What is going on underneath all the, you remember Tron, that movie? Anybody ever heard of that? That was a bomb, okay? That was an absolute bomb. Just like Ishtar. Remember that one? You remember it because it was so bad. It was like one of the biggest flops in all of it. So they go back and analyze it, and it's like the story sucked. I mean, that was basically what happened. But okay, look at this thing for a minute. This is about your story, and we're going to go through this real quickly. I did a lot of research on stories and how to tell stories and how to create stories and things like that. And I saw this one guy, he literally almost has a PhD in stories. He said there were 82 definitions of story. Okay, so we're going to have one. So this is called Write This Down. It is basically a narrative that involves a hero or a heroine who encounters an obstacle and then overcomes that obstacle to find success. Okay? So there's really only 3 elements going on here. And I'll just say hero to mean both male and female. Okay? Yeah. The hero or the heroine confronts an obstacle, overcomes that obstacle to be successful. So the 3 core elements are the hero or the heroine. That's number 1. Number 2 is the obstacle. 3 is the success. Okay, so you're going to see this in movies and fairy tales and mythology. here's a little question. Does anybody remember, I'm going to give you 2 words. Does anybody remember the Chilean miners? And we're not talking about children. Okay. Okay. Now, why do you remember the Chilean miners? They were stuck in a cave. They weren't willing to give up anything. They were okay. The reason why that was gripping, and there's a lot of reasons, but the reason why that gripped the world for like 4 or 5 days was because of the story. These people, these miners, were in a dangerous situation with this obstacle, looking to get success. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3. Now, some of you may remember this cruise ship that happened the other day, okay? Which also made national news, okay? International news. Oh, those poor people, you know. However, it didn't have the same global impact as the Chilean miners for a lot of reasons. But and we're not going to get into this, but people, we could get into that a whole lot, but people literally, I mean, there are reporters who analyzed this. They said, why didn't all these cruise ship people get so much attention versus these Chilean miners? Because that's what their job is, to write stories and, you know, analyze things. And one of the things was the Chilean miners are sort of drawn out, and it was concentrated. It was only like 30 people or whatever. It's not like 3,000 people who are out partying and all of a sudden they don't have any toilets, you know. And they had, because I mean, I remember seeing the news, you know, and it's like, some people, what are they complaining about? They're getting a free cruise and they're getting a refund and they're getting first class and, you know, so stop whining. You know, oh my God, I had to drive from Houston to Galveston, you know, where these children, so it was totally different. But that kind of thing grips people, okay? So, how many stories do you need? We're getting to this, the bottom of this sheet. You need and you can fill in the numbers that you want, but I mean, some people say you need a 30-second story, a 90-second story, and, you know, a 30-minute story. Now, I'm sure you've gone to all these conferences where you see people get up there and just, oh my God, I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that, and it's their story. And a lot of it is, I think Gene mentioned motivational speakers. I mean, there's motivational speakers up the wazoo, right? And they're going to pump you up, and then you're going to get all excited. I'm going to go do something, and you walk out of the room, you don't do anything. There's a guy, Larry Wingett, write his name down. Larry, W-I-N-G-E-T. And he's a very funny guy. He's in the National Speakers Hall of Fame. He used to call himself a motivational speaker, and he gave that up because he said people don't do anything. So now he calls himself an irritational speaker. He goes, I'm the world's leading irritational speaker because I light a fire under you, and if you don't go do something, I'm going to come after you. And he wrote a book. It's called Your Kids Are Your Own Damn Fault. And the publisher took out the word damn because it's like they want to be polite. Okay, now Larry is not polite in the least. Okay, you go watch him, you're going to be laughing, you're going to be crying. I'm not sure if you're going to be crying, but I did see people in the audience who were tearing up, okay, when he was like poking holes in their story. Like, I'm so this and I'm so that. Why didn't you get enough education? Well, my mommy was bad to me. I mean, he goes right after you, okay? So how many stories do you need? Now, and we're talking about business, more or less. What do you know, whatever you're trying to do out there. So you need at least 3 stories, because you want to be up in front of a room, people telling your stories so that you can attract them. You know, only a certain portion, okay? I mean, the portion that's right for you. You're trying to attract those people. Okay, so go to the next page. So there's a formula. And the first one is a question that states a problem, because you are problem solvers, you are solution providers. Now, you've heard that a million times. Within the story structure, the narrative, you know, the hero, the obstacle, the treasure. That obstacle is the problem. Okay? Now, on number 2, so 1 or 2 sentences about yourself that basically shows the solution to the problem. So, hi, I'm in weight loss. I can help you lose weight because you're I don't want to say FAT, but you are. Because you're horizontally challenged. That's what you are. Because we're going to be polite. We're going to be PC. But you want to shed a few pounds? I can help. You've got a problem that we don't want to talk about, but give me some money and I'll help you. Okay, so that's number 2. Now, you don't want to come in saying, hi, I'm Jack LaLanne, and I know what it's like to be overweight. Because, I mean, some of you are probably too young to know who Jack LaLanne was, but you don't want to come in, as somebody who's never had a weight problem, because they can't identify with you. So you have, number 3, a turning point in your life that led to a major aha moment. So the best thing to do is, for credibility, is to say, I've been in your shoes. I used to look like John Candy, and now, I look like Jack LaLanne. Okay? Now, I mean, there are more modern people we could use. Actually, I'm not going to even mention somebody modern, but I'll change it. I used to be Rosie, and now I look like Twiggy. Okay? So that's where you can empathize. You're looking for the, how do I bond with you? Okay? Pat, love your audit associates. I'm in trouble with the IRS. Can you help? Have you ever helped anybody? And it doesn't have to be you who are in trouble with the IRS, but you've helped people like me. That's you get the credibility from the, oh my God, you've helped people like me. Well, thank God, because everybody I've talked to, they don't know what they're talking about, but you really do. Okay? So that's the part about, you had an aha moment. So you know the quote-unquote secret. So number 4 is what happened next. And then number 5 is now I help others. So it's like, well, either I had a weight loss problem or I've helped all these other people. But you have to get that bonding and that credibility. And that's part of your story. Okay? So now I'm here to tell you the solution that brings the listener, your audience, the solution that brings the listener to the victory or the fulfillment or the treasure and solves the original problem. Okay? So basically, you boil it down to, you've got a problem, I can help you solve it because I know what I'm talking about. And you have to put that into your being. Now, there's a guy named Ted Levitt who used to teach at Harvard Business School. And he wrote an important article a long time ago, which you don't need to read, but it basically said, how do you differentiate yourself in a commodity-driven world? And one of Jay Abraham's first principles is he will tell you the world is trying to reduce every one of us, including him, to a commodity. To like, oh my God, you're just like everybody else. You're a dry cleaner, just like everybody else. You're a real estate agent, just like, you're a caterer, just like, so how do you stand above the crowd? I did some Google searching on these a long time ago, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I mean, if you're a real estate investor looking for capital, there's like 1 billion people doing the same thing almost. I mean, I literally did do personal development coach. I did a little search on that. Like there were 800 million hits on Google, and given you take away 1/3 of that for duplicate hits, you still have 500 million personal development coaches out there. And I'll bet you there's at least one person in this room who's sort of in that field. How do you stand out? Okay, so that's your story is what nobody can take away. Oh, I went to the same college you did. Oh, I went to the same training program. I went to work for the same company. But there's something about you, your unique gifts, the way you talk, the way you meet people, the way you bond with people. Nobody duplicates that. So getting back to Ted Levitt, he talked about selling nuts and bolts, literally, these metal things. And how does somebody differentiate in a world where they're selling nuts and bolts? Because it's like, oh my God, that size 30 bolt versus your size 30 bolt. They did it by service, or they did it by fast delivery, or they did it by inventory. You need it, we've got it. So there's a lot of ways you can differentiate that are not necessarily obvious. the thing about differentiation is you don't always know where it's going to come from. But you have to make sure that what you're promoting out there is something they want as a benefit. Okay? So it's not good when you say, oh, I'm different because of A, when they don't care about A. And a lot of companies, and I've seen this, I was going to say at least 1,000 times, probably not. I mean, I know a lot of companies that go, oh, I've got this and I've got that, and they're going to want it, they're going to love it. And they get out there and they fall flat on their face because they didn't go research the market. They didn't go say, hey, what do you people really want? And are you going to pay for it? Or are you going to value it? Now, one of the things about the internet, anybody not know surveymonkey.com? Actually, I don't want to, okay, just if you don't know surveymonkey.com, write that down. And if you don't know Fiverr, Fiverr, okay? Five with an extra, Fiverr with two R's. Fiverr. And I will show you something. These, not this one, that was actually, that's a real book. And I actually got somebody to do a $5 cover. But these two covers were $5 covers, okay? Now, except for the fact this vault, I licensed that vault from iStock Photo for $10. So I paid somebody $10. I gave the designer on Fiverr $5 and said, take this vault, take that mugshot, because the iconic photo of Jim Morrison is the one where he's going like this without a shirt on. Okay, he's got these beads. And I'll show that to you in a minute. But I asked them, how much do you want for me to use that photo? And they said $8,000. And I said, well, it's $8,000 I don't want to spend. So I said, wait a minute, I got to think of some way to quote unquote game the system, but it's not gaming the system. But it turns out this photo is public domain because it was shot by the New Haven Police Department. And it is called Government. And Rob here, government, I mean, everybody should know Pueblo, Colorado, in case you don't, okay? Because that's where you get free stuff. Because you're already paying for it. I mean, it's really not free. You were paid for it by your taxes. Okay, the government is a huge resource, okay? And the government employs all these people in Washington. We're going to get to another guy, Matthew Lesko, in a little bit. But, I mean, he's made a fortune in selling information which you can get for free, okay? But the government employs people all over the world for you to call. And, it's like, Judy, the Time Life operator? You know her? Okay. She's sitting there all day long waiting for somebody to call, and if you're not calling, they're not really doing their job, so you got to be calling them.
So what was your point about Pueblo, Colorado? What was that?
Pueblo, Colorado is where the government has a huge facility. You write to get stuff from them.
Resource center.
Yeah.
They're not online?
Oh, I'm sure they're online. Okay, I mean, it used to be you had to write to them, but yeah, I'm sure it was like, you could even say, specialist in foreign trade, and don't say Washington, D.C., because they won't know what that, I mean, there are people in D.C., but you could just probably say Pueblo, Colorado, and it's sort of like the mail guy will get it there, sort of like they get the mail to Santa, they can figure that one out, right? But Pueblo, Colorado is literally a place where the government has just tons of stuff, free, okay? But anyway, getting back to Fiverr, these two book covers were $5, and I showed it to one of my friends who's a graphic designer. She goes, oh my God, I'm going to get driven out of business. So she has to basically step up her game to increase value so people use her. And I actually had somebody say, oh my God, these Fiverr people who are out there, they'll do a lot of stuff for you. There's hundreds of thousands of Fiverr, quote unquote, suppliers. Graphics people, Facebook people, I'll design a brochure for you. I'll do
virtual assistants there?
Well, they're just, yeah, I mean, you can call them virtual assistants, but I mean, the person who did this, these two, she lives in Philadelphia, she's in college. And somebody said, well, why would somebody do something for $5? And I mean, I've never talked to her in person, but it's, number one is this thing took her all of about 10 minutes. But she wanted $5. Okay, then it also helps expand her business because I'm talking about her. I can give her, I can give you her name, and I've given her, her name plus her Fiverr login, and you could go get stuff done for $5 in the graphic. I mean, she will literally design the front and back of your book too, if you really want. But it's not going to be $5. But I had a guy do this. This is like a wraparound. He did the whole. It was $600 to lay out the book and do the graphics. She said she could do the front and the back. I mean, I know people who will charge several $100s. She could do it for probably $20. And she's very good. So Fiverr is a really good resource. SurveyMonkey is another one where you can do free surveys on the web. So that's where you're not supposed to be dreaming up stuff and saying, does anybody want it? You're supposed to be going to SurveyMonkey. So you get a mailing list and, hey, go to surveymonkey.com, fill out this information. I want to get to know you. I want to help you, and I'll give you something free. And here we are, we're texting. People are, we're going to be texting. If you want to opt into a text, we'll give you free stuff. Okay? Now, how do you persuade people to join your tribe? So you're trying to build credibility, and there's a Las Vegas table rush that I saw. I'll get to that in a little bit, but what I want to do is to just ask you, do you think that these people have any problem selling their craft? Julia Roberts, Tiger Woods, Warren Buffett? No, because everybody knows who they are. They have a brand, right? And even though the brand can go up and down, if Warren Buffett says, I'm having a seminar at my house and I want you to come over, okay? $10 or $1,000, whatever it is. He doesn't need to do any marketing. He doesn't need to do any selling. He's got brand. Now, write these three words down: sales, marketing, and branding. Okay? And there's a lot of overlap between these, but sales, the way I want to talk about it is sort of face-to-face sales. And you could do that on the internet, and you could do that. And sales and marketing are really very closely aligned. But where I learned marketing at Northwestern University, the guy said the aim of marketing is to make selling unnecessary. Now there was an ad from for McGraw-Hill a long time ago showing this guy sitting in a chair and all these words beside it. I don't know you, I don't know your company, I don't know what the first thing you do. Now what was it you're trying to sell me? Okay, so the marketing is to get the word out there, get the message out there, pave the way for sales to happen, quote unquote, automatically. Now, branding is to eliminate the need for marketing. So, you say Tiger Woods is giving golf lessons. Now, he doesn't need to do any marketing. He doesn't, everybody knows his brand. So, brand, the phrase brand equity, that became current 10 years ago. But all these companies started thinking about, how do I monetize my brand? How do I build that brand? Nike versus Reebok versus Adidas, those guys are in a war, Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, they don't really compete head on, but they do compete. And do you have Peet's Coffee down here? Okay, Peet's is an interesting company that the guy who founded it was from the Netherlands, Alfred Peet, and he taught somebody in the United States how to make coffee who was actually associated with Starbucks at one point. And Peet's is a lot more mellow, and I was in line once at Starbucks, and the guy said to me, oh, well, you're getting Charbucks? Because it's like sort of bitter. But Peet's is mellow. But anyway, I was reading this article in the New York Times, and it goes, Peet's is expanding. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's great, because I love Peet's. It goes, they have 90 stores, and they want to go to 200. And Starbucks has 15,000 stores. So, So Starbucks knows what they're doing, and brand is a very big part of that, because you know what to expect. McDonald's, you know what to expect. Now they do heavy advertising, they do heavy marketing. You know, those consumer goods companies spend tons of money on marketing. The technology people, oh, our thing is so great, it'll sell itself. You ever heard that before? Okay, they don't know what they're talking about. Marketing is incredibly important, but if you've got the brand, then, now who in technology has a brand? Microsoft. Apple. How many people line up at 3 in the morning to go buy Dell? How many people line up at 3 in the morning to go buy Windows 8? Versus how many people line up at 3 to go buy an iPhone 5? Or the new Mac? Or, you know, Apple has this charisma, has this brand. Now, even though Steve Jobs is dead, Apple still has that cachet. And, you know, it may go away, but, you know, obviously that whole company is geared towards making sure that it won't. And let me just ask you, and this should be easy, who's the guy who was behind Apple? Steve Jobs. Okay, great. Steve Jobs. Now, who's the other guy who was behind Apple? Steve Wozniak. Okay, great. Steve Jobs was the guy who was out in front, hyping everything. Wozniak was the technical guy. He's still around. By the way, I'm going to give you a tip. Okay. Now, this does not go beyond this room, but he actually said this. He's listed in the phone book, and he answers his own phone. So if you ever need something from Steve Wozniak, or not need, I mean, it could be, hey, Steve, I really admire Apple. You know?
Well, he waits in line too for the new iPhones. I mean, he waits in line with everyone else, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. I met him and we talked a little bit, and he answers his own phone. You know, a lot of people, security is everywhere, and you can't get in touch with a 10-foot pole. But Apple has a brand. Okay, so you are trying to think of what makes that brand. Now, one thing about Steve Jobs, and we're not going to have time to really cover this in detail, but I'll give you I'm going to put this in the bonus thing, but Steve Jobs gives, or used to give, great speeches. Okay? Has anybody ever seen Steve Jobs' Stanford speech? Okay, go Google that if you have time. It's not, I mean, it's sort of like I could tell you to go do 100 things, and some of them were, you know, due right away, some of them are due next year, some of them you don't have to do at all. But the Steve Jobs speech at Stanford has gotten a tremendous amount of play because he sort of laid it on the line for him. He was what you call a great communicator. However, who was the person, when I say the great communicator, who comes to mind? Reagan, that's right, Reagan. Even though there's a lot of great communicators, Reagan got the tagline, the great communicator. Now, when I say who was the great one, who comes to mind there? Pardon? Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky, right. And then if I say, I am the greatest, who comes to mind there? See? You're all Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. Now, Muhammad Ali obviously was a little bit different from Wayne Gretzky, because I've never heard Wayne Gretzky go, I am the greatest, I am the greatest, I am the greatest. You know, whereas Muhammad Ali, his whole shtick was to get out there and get in your face. I mean, he's a boxer, for God's sake. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm strictly violent. He's out to pummel you. So his words were congruent with that. Now, Wayne Gretzky is the nicest guy. I've never met him, but he's the nicest, you know, but he became the great one because of his deeds and his actions. So whatever you want people to think about you, that's part of your USP, okay? Now, the part about branding, we could talk about this a long time. Now, there are companies in New York, and probably in Melbourne too, where you could give them $50,000, and they would take months to come up with your USP. Okay, Lippincott's one of them. They'll just, all these people in suits sit around a conference table and mull over, oh my God, we've got another client and, they're paying us 50 grand, we got to think of something. That's what they do, really. By the way, remember the movie Crazy People? Okay, this is a must write down. Okay, Crazy People, with Daryl Hannah and Dudley Moore, and Paul Reiser was in that. And the reason I'm bringing it up because it's hilariously funny, but it's incredibly good for learning about marketing and learning about branding and learning about this hero's journey that we're talking about. Okay, because there's a great scene, and we're gonna talk about the hero's journey in a little bit more depth. But there's a great scene where, let me just give you the backdrop to the movie. Dudley Moore is this advertising executive who's creates ads and he's burned out. And he came up with these ads and he goes to Paul Reiser, who's his boss, and he shows him these ads. And they were what you call brutally honest ads. And one of the ads was, we're Volvo, we're boxy, but we're safe. And another one was like, Metamucil, if you don't drink Metamucil, you'll get cancer. And something like that. So it's very much in your face. And Paul Reiser says, wait a minute, you can't run these ads because they're too honest. You can't tell the truth to the audience. So go into a rest home for a couple of weeks and we'll get back to our typical advertising, which is full of bullshit, right? So they leave the brutally honest ads on this table, and the courier picks them up by mistake and runs them. And Dudley Moore's in this insane asylum, sort of, taking a break, and he meets Daryl Hannah, who's another inmate or visitor. But anyway, so these brutally honest ads get run, and every product is just booming in sales, booming. Okay, there's a run on Metamucil, and it's not X-rated, and it's not. I don't even know if it's R-rated. I'm not even going to tell you the R-rated part. But so these advertising people say, what the hell's going on here? How is it that all these ads can be very successful and our stuff doesn't work? So they get into a room and they say, let's come up with some brutally honest ads. So these are the Madison Avenue people. I just mentioned Lippincott. I mean, those people sit around at a table in a bunch of suits. And it's like, okay, let's get serious now and think about how to make this shampoo sell like hotcakes. Okay, so this is in the movie. Say something honest about that shampoo. They're going around this table, and this one guy goes, I like little boys. And then the guy goes, you're supposed to say something about the shampoo, you idiot. But in these brutally honest ads that get run, one of them is for a weight loss product. And the ad says, admit it, you're fat. Okay? If you don't get our product to lose weight, it's curtains, something like that. Call now if you're one of the first 100, you get a free plant. Okay? So, something like that. Now, then it shows this couple who's on it's called Middle America, right? There is this couple. This guy is obese, and he's got a T-shirt on, and this lady's in curlers, and she's got her nightgown on. This is like, it's not like they live in a trailer park, but that's sort of what they want you to think. Okay, this is, these two people. And so this lady is saying to this guy on the couch, they both weigh 300 pounds. So she says to this guy, call him, we really need to lose weight, call him. And the guy goes, and I might have this like a little out of order, but the guy goes, I don't want to admit that I'm fat. She goes, call him and get the friggin' free plant. So he gets on the line, goes, okay, I admit it, I'm fat. So these it's very, very funny, but it's got a lot of deep psychology, that movie. And getting back to the hero's journey, just look at the rest of this here for a minute, because this is all related in a way to branding. People love stories, so you have to come up with your story, and that's got to be part of your USP. And Joe Sugarman is a master marketer. Do you know blue blockers? Those glasses? They're on television. He was the guy behind that, and he created a lot of mail order through space advertising a long time ago. And he talks about your story, and Steve Jobs talks about your story, and all these people talk about your story. Nobody takes that away from you. When you are being reduced to a commodity, well, I can go get something from somebody else for cheaper. I can get something for somebody, I mean, those are whiners, right? You have to come up with your USP. You have to come up with your, why should they do business with you? And it's not like everybody's supposed to do business with you. You're looking for your people, okay? So don't take it personally when somebody says, oh my God, I can get it cheaper. So there are some resources here that are really worth looking at. Okay, for 5 minutes, write down, get out a sheet of paper that's clean, and there's these pads there if you don't have any of that. Write down something about your story, your unique selling proposition. If I came up to you and said, okay, you've got 10 seconds to tell the world, which is what your website is, by the way. You've got 10 seconds to tell the world, why should I do business with you or come to your concert or use your services, whatever. So write that down for a few minutes, 5 minutes. By the way, I'm giving you 5 minutes, but I'm working with a couple in Australia, and they're still working on this, and it's been 3 months. And this is not, and that's why you pay Lippincott $50,000. Those companies do that. And we're not expecting you to have your polished 29-second soundbite done in 5 minutes. But if you're not working on this now, then you're not putting the foundation in place. You go to a cocktail party, you go to a networking party, what's your story is something people will ask you. Who are you? Okay, you want more time? Couple more minutes? Okay. A couple more minutes, and then we'll be working on this over the next day and a half. I'm going to tell you something that I heard from somebody else, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But the one word this person said, and I'll tell you, he said there's one word that's the foundation for your success. And I never had heard this before until about a month ago. And the one word was communications. Your ability to communicate. And it's not negotiate, it's not persuade, it's to communicate. So this USP is about communications. So you don't want to be slammering and slobbering and blah, 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 blah. Okay? I think I do this, and I don't know what it means. I think we've all been there and done that. Okay, who would like to share their USP? Go ahead. Go to the mic and read it. Or say it. Read it or say it. And you can, I'll just bring it over. And state your name and your business too.
I'm Darlene McGee, and I own Silhouette Hair Design in Melbourne, Florida. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. So I just, so what I sell is a haircut. Oh, haircut. And I said you can get a cheaper haircut by someone that doesn't care, but you can't get a better haircut because we care.
Okay? Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we're going to think about these over the next couple of days. If anybody's got suggestions for Darlene or anybody else, that's fine. Just let's keep those in mind.
Hello, my name is Rob Markey. I'm a global entrepreneur. Growing up, I watched my father work 43 years for a company, and because he signed that paper that says whatever he creates on their time, basically they own, he doesn't. In 1969, he created 5 machines. They got $49 million. He got a $20 Timex watch. So I looked at that, and I basically heard John Paul Getty, when I was young, 8 years old, say, learn how to make 1% off 100 people's efforts versus 100% off your own. Asked my dad what that meant. He didn't know. We found out together. I've been a global network. I've been a corporate executive. I've been in network marketing, multi-level marketing, direct sales for 41 years. And I work with the greatest company in the world called New Skin. And I can actually take 10 to 20 years off of aging off your face, your lines, everything. I can take it off at the cellular level as well. And we just created a genetic weight loss program, which is the only one of its kind in the world, which will be released in October 15th. And we will outsell Apple's iPhone 5. We have $700 million in orders ready.
Okay, great.
Work for yourself.
Anybody else? Okay, Abby?
It's not polished by any means, so please, if you have any suggestions, they're welcome. Real estate is the foundation of all wealth because underneath of it all is the land. However, it's very easy to make custom mistakes, just like I did. That is why, after all my experiences, I help others protect their nest egg. And I can't read my own handwriting, I'm sorry. And increase their wealth instead of losing it.
Okay, what was the last part? Increase their wealth.
Increase their wealth instead of losing it.
Instead of losing it. Okay, now are you a real estate broker or, okay, so you're a broker. So you're helping people get into real estate. Buy real estate, sell real estate? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so everybody should be working on their USP. You have to be confident when you say it, and you've got to be clear. One thing about communications is you really need to be understood. So use simple words. Now, you remember the movie Avatar? At the beginning of that movie? Sigourney Weaver is this highfalutin PhD, Remember that at the very beginning of that movie? She comes out there all full of herself. And this guy comes up in a wheelchair named Jake, who is a substitute because his brother is dead. Remember that? Yeah. And she starts, oh my God, they sent me this jerk and, get lost. So she huffs off. And her assistant says to Jake, you want to impress her? Use big words. Now that's the formula for success at a university where they're not relating to real people. Okay, they're relating to themselves. I mean, they're real people, but you cannot use big words when you get out there in front of your audience, because the audience does not want to hear big words. They don't want to understand big. They don't want to work. Okay? Work is a 4-letter word, by the way. They want to be understood immediately. They want to be understood. I mean, they want to understand immediately. They want to understand at the gut level. And in one of the resources that I have in the bonus kit is something about pitch anything. Just write that down. You're going to get that. But there's a guy who wrote a book called Pitch Anything. And it's very important because it talks a lot about the latest findings in neuroscience. And it's not really the latest, but they're just confirming this, which is when you talk, you're coming from this intellectual, neocortex, rational part of the brain. And you were taught, you think, or many of us think, we are being understood by somebody's rational part of the brain, neocortex. But you're actually not. You're being understood by, okay, let's just say these are two people. With the higher brain and the lower brain, you are thinking you are being understood over here. Okay, so this is the neocortex. And this is where language and logic and things like math, things like that. Okay. Now, this part of the brain is emotions and things, and that whole feelings. Okay. Now, anybody know who called himself the Lizard King? Jim Morrison? That's right. Jim Morrison called himself the Lizard King. And he talked in his lyrics about the mind and the brain. He used both those words in his lyrics. Now, he called himself the Lizard King because it turns out the lizard, they're calling this the lizard brain, the reptilian brain. This was the lower part of the brain, it's right here, that has been around for thousands and thousands, millions of years as we evolved. And you are actually being understood over here. So you actually have to be targeting the lizard brain, not the neocortex, in order to be accepted and have this pass from here up to here. Now this could happen, in a nanosecond. But this is fight or flight, or I love you or I don't love you. I like you or I don't like you. These instantaneous gut reactions. They talk gut reaction. They talk about animal magnetism. They talk about fight or flight. So when you say I do the following or whatever it is, if you are going up here, that's actually not a good thing. You have to be targeting here in order to go up here. So Pitch Anything goes into this in incredible detail, and it's an incredible book. When I heard this guy talk about it, the first thing I did was to go get 2 copies, and I went down to Barnes & Noble. I called him and said, do you have it in stock? And the guy goes, yeah, we have it in stock. I go down there, and they don't have it. It's misplaced. I found it like 3 hours later. I went back a second time. But because people at bookstores tend to misplace, they misshelve things. But Pitch Anything is one of those must read. You don't have to buy it. You can just look at it online. There's 5 big points. But one of them is you need to be appealing to the emotions. So when you're, the technical people, oh my God, this thing's got, speed and feed, and that's the computer lingo. How many gigahertz does your thing run? How many meg of RAM do you have? How much memory? How fast? What I want is convenience. I want this thing to work. I want this thing to be like mom and apple pie, like vanilla. I want this thing to be utility, which makes me comfortable. Okay? So that's what this is all about. Okay, now, we're going to take a break in a second, but I've got a bonus tip for you. Now, there's a guy named Ted Nicholas. In case you don't know who he is, we're going to get to him in a little bit. But Ted Nicholas is one of the world's most famous copywriters. And he's still around. He lives either in Geneva or somewhere like Indian Beach or something like that. Somewhere in Florida. And Ted is literally, I mentioned communications earlier. Ted is one of the master communicators. Just like Steve Jobs, just like Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln. These people, Golda Meir, these people, Margaret Thatcher, these people were master communicators. So anyway, Ted, and this goes right into Darlene's area, except she's not here. Darlene, what did she say about her anniversary? Anybody remember that? 40 years, right. Darlene is celebrating 40 years of being in the business of doing your hair. By the way, that hair business is a good business to be in because people's hair was always growing. Okay? Although, it's not like buggy whips, which went out of style. But okay, so Ted Nicholas, he goes, you walk into a restaurant and there's 2 words to say. And you don't be a jerk, you just say, hey, okay, anybody have an idea of what those 2 words are? This is Ted's version, but he said this works. But anybody have an idea of what these 2 words are? What do you say at the front when you walk in? Hi, can you give us a good table because blank blank? It's our anniversary. That's exactly the right concept. It's a little farther down, but it's we're celebrating. Yeah. You say, we're celebrating. And you smile, You don't go, oh, we're celebrating. Hi, we'd really like a nice table tonight because we're celebrating. And that, Ted, and I've tried this all over the world. They like to help you. Okay, they like to help you celebrate. And you're going to be a nice customer because you're celebrating as opposed to, I'm grumpy tonight and I'm going to be a bad customer. So give me a good table, right? Anyway, so Ted, he said, he won't say, oh, it's my anniversary or it's my birthday when it's not. He'll say, so somebody said, well, what are you celebrating? And he didn't have anything to celebrate. So he said, we're celebrating our existence.
We're all celebrating our existence.
So we're celebrating. So, Jill?
Quick question. You mentioned there were 5 words of marketing, and you gave us 2. You said free and new. What are the other 3?
Well, they vary, and I have to go look that up because that was from an article.
Okay.
But improve. You see, there's probably, in fact, Ted Nicholas wrote a book, Magic Words That Will Either Make You Rich or something like that. And there's another book, Words That Sell. Literally 1,000 words. But new, improved, and free are right at the top of the list. Okay, Darby?
Thank you, David. Hey, give it up for David. Isn't he doing an awesome job? All this information, this is of great value for you all, isn't it?